So hello, everyone. Thank you, Keith, and the group for fitting me in. I was being pressured by some of my colleagues here, and then after Alan's talk on sharing and whatnot, I think it just was fitting to say a few words. I'm from the U.S. I'm very grateful to be here. It was kind of a coincidence to be in Europe and being able to attend this conference. And for a couple of reasons. One, I see that it's a pretty young group when it comes to kicking off your wireless career and starting down a more serious certification path. That's very exciting to see and very exciting to hear when most of you have presented and to talk to you and get an idea of where you're at and the excitement. It's very, very, very refreshing compared to some of the groups in the U.S. They're bigger groups and a little bit more seasoned, and it's good to hear a more refreshing conversation. So thank you for that. And that kind of also inspired me to say a few words today. I was kind of struggling with topics or whatnot, but I felt like what I've done in the last 10 plus years, more than anything, and just more talking to the young folks, something else you have to prepare for besides all your exams and all the other things you must do to go down that CWNE path, is you must become a coach, right? So, and when I say coach, one thing that you're going to do more than design, implement, troubleshoot, is you're going to have to educate. Wireless is one of those topics that touches people across all verticals, across all industries. So you can't get away from it. You have to, and when I say educate, I'm also talking about non-technical folks, right? Because we all educate each other, we educate our customers and whatnot, but we really have to get serious about educating our peers and our other folks that are not necessarily technical or in Wi-Fi. And you'll start to find that not only will that accelerate your growth in the wireless field and as a professional, but it'll also open doors and remove barriers for you. And I think that's also the essence of what the advisory board is trying to do. We're trying to get the word out, and I'm not part of the advisory board, but they're trying to get the word out, and they're trying to align our groups so that we could start to make best practices more official and whatnot. That's at least my understanding. And I believe that one of the paths to doing that is just a broader sense of education across all verticals and all people that we deal with. And so I've kind of taken that on in previous jobs and found that to be very rewarding, because who are we coaching? Like we said, everybody, right? There's nobody that gets left from this list. Sales teams, our bosses, how many people needed permission to come here? There's more than just budget. Sometimes you have to convince them that it's technically valuable to the company that you work for. IT departments. I mean, there's a wireless guy at every customer IT, but they're not truly a wireless person, right? They've touched a controller. They've worked with a couple tools, but there's always a continuous education that has to be completed. And so this is more inspirational to kind of broaden your radar when it comes to when you're encountering different groups to take on a challenge to start to make them aware. So I've kind of hacked a couple of slides together just to show you some of the things that I've used in the past. Wireless is not easy. I mean, if you're in this room and you're down a path to get certified, and then I could tell you right now, you already know more than most people out there about wireless, regardless of your certification. And that means a lot, but that's because wireless is not the easiest thing to understand. And when you look at our landscape, this is kind of what we're dealing with internally, right? As a professional, I mean, the real world is this sliver, and then we have all this other stuff that kind of influences what we're trying to make the real world. And so that's hard to get across to folks that are not in our field. And so, I always start off with this slide when it comes to a group that's non-technical, and just go over the misconceptions right off the bat, right? the biggest one, home Wi-Fi is not the same as X. It could be hospital Wi-Fi, it could be warehouse, it could be, you name it, enterprise or small business or higher, and it's not the same as your home. And that's a huge misconception that people have. And when I put this slide up, we spend about 10 minutes just talking about some of the things on this slide because of how the rest of the world or the common person that's non-technical sees Wi-Fi, right? It's not all wireless is the same. Our broadband cellular connections are not the same as 802.11. Wireless devices are created equal? Hell no. And single strength bars, right? Just all the things that we know as professionals in this field, educating just nuggets of information make a huge difference when it comes to clinicians or actually nurses have been the best at adopting some of this stuff, just FYI. But it really just comes to thinking about breaking this down for our peers that are non-technical. And if you follow that path, I guarantee that it will make your job easier going forward. So I'm going to scan through these pretty quick, just examples that I've used to try to get the point across that, we're dealing with invisible technology, right? Where there's no wires that I could point to. I got to show them either a screenshot of air magnet or a spectrum analyzer, which does no good to somebody who's not trained. So we have to start to just really get easy and fundamental with some of these folks. I mean, you're trying to explain this, right? to a person that's non-technical. Even to a wireless person, this can be difficult. So, you have to kind of take a step back and really dial it into what makes sense and what will help them to kind of understand why they need to hire you and not the guy who's cheaper, right? And really understand why you should be going to conferences and keeping up with the technology, because it is more difficult than it seems. And yeah, why does this work? Because it's super fast, right? That's the only reason. Explaining standards, right, and protocols, you really have to make it simple because it's so easy to get lost in the weeds in our field. So it just continually trying to break this down. I always work on these slides with different industries or groups that I'm working with just to make things a little bit more simplified. It's invisible. How do you explain duty cycle to somebody, right, when it's an invisible technology or capacity? It's just, you have to get visual. You have to really break it down for these folks. But again, I guarantee it will make a difference. And then just educating our customers who have vendors and other folks that come in and say, yeah, look at, you got perfect coverage, right? And we have to educate them why that is different than that and why our laptop is different than our client device. Just simple things, and really becoming that teacher and becoming a good teacher so that you're not coming off as, a know-it-all. I'm not saying to do that, but you really have to hone in that skill, just like we're honing in our wireless skills. And so, RF interference and things of that nature, you really have to just kind of break it down when it comes to devices, body attenuation for medical devices, polarization, orientation, all the things that all of you have talked about today. We have to kind of sum it up and package it for our folks so that they can have a better understanding of what we're trying to do and understand why we cost more money or why we need to do certain steps that other vendors might not do, right? Oh, well, I didn't need to do that with so-and-so, or, CW, somebody didn't make me do that. And so you really have to break it down. So what you could do today, you're already doing this, right? You're here today, you're involved with the wireless community. Get certified. It makes a difference. Stay certified. Don't let that lapse. In this path, it only gets harder. Like I said, you got to become a teacher. You got to keep up on your certs, and you have to do all those things all the time and work and have a family. So a wireless engineer to me is a multitasker beyond some of the other folks that in our fields. But diversify yourself too. I love designing. I love working out in the field and taking on more challenging environments. But I've been in the client side for the last 5 years, and I really enjoy it, and I really see the benefits of being on the other side of the coin. So don't be afraid to do that. I mean, wireless is not going anywhere. You could definitely go back and forth whenever you need to. Act and look professional, right? That's going to make you a better teacher. That's going to make you more respected. And again, going back to ABC, always be a coach. You know, just like we're studying and we're doing all these things for our certifications and we're building our labs at home, build your slides. You know, ask to train and teach a subject at all meetings. You know, invite yourself to sales meetings and things like that so that you could start to educate those folks. I know that some of you guys are getting your sales team, CW, TS and whatnot, and that's the right path. And again, if you're in this room, I guarantee you're probably more versed in wireless than most folks out there. So be the expert and hold yourself out to do that. And just make basic wireless training part of any cross-functional project before you kick off. It makes a difference when they understand where you're coming from. And one thing we tried with the last company as I was at is a day in the life of blank. So we had a cross-functional team. I was working for a medical device company. And what we did, everybody wore somebody else's hat. So I became a clinician for an hour. Then the clinician became a wireless person for an hour. And I forget what the other folks were doing there. But we switched roles. And you had people walking around with their magnet, doing site surveys, looking at spectrum. And it makes a difference. It makes this thing make sense to them at the end of the day. And it just drives things home. But I guarantee that this is just one more thing you have to do. I'm sorry. I know you have a lot on your plate. But make teaching and make yourself a good professor, so to speak, of the craft, and it will definitely make your path a lot easier. Thank you.
Thank you.